This is KGW News at noon.
In our top story this afternoon, the mayor of Newport has resigned just a few days after it came to light that he had posted racist, sexist, and homophobic memes online in a Facebook group. Thanks for joining us for today's News at Noon. I'm Drew Carney. It was just a few hours ago that Mayor Dean Sawyer released a statement apologizing for his actions and saying that he takes responsibility for those posts. He wrote in part, "The posts I made and the humor I engaged in do not reflect my values. It was wrong for me to belittle people with experiences different than my own. I understand that many of you are upset, angry, and confused by my actions. You have every right to be." OPB first reported the Facebook posts on Friday. Some of them go back 7 years to 2016. They were posted in a private law enforcement Facebook group. Over the weekend, Newport City councilors and residents of the city called on Sawyer to step down.
What these memes did was, once again, target me, target people who look like me, target my LGBTQ friends, target my trans friends.
You can't continue to post and post and post in a so-called private 39,000 member Facebook group and not believe those posts.
Sawyer was a Newport police officer for 30 years before he was elected mayor in 2018. We also have an update this afternoon on what we now know was a deadly shooting that happened last night in North Portland. Police say it happened just before 10 p.m. When officers arrived at the scene there on North Fessenden Street near the intersection of North Iris Way, they found one man dead. They still haven't identified that man. Police have also made no arrests so far and didn't offer us any information about a possible suspect. That was one of at least 3 shootings over the weekend. Another one happened on Saturday night. Portland police responded to this rollover crash involving 2 cars at the intersection of Southeast 102nd and Washington Street. Police say one of the drivers involved had been shot and is still recovering at the hospital. A passenger later died at the hospital. Then yesterday, around 4:30 in the afternoon, another man was shot in Southeast Portland on Southeast 174th Avenue. No arrests have been made in this case either. The man accused of stabbing a local restaurant worker to death earlier this month in Southeast Portland will appear in court this afternoon. U.S. Marshals arrested Renique Jackson last Friday. He's charged with murder in the death of 32-year-old Colin Smith. Smith worked as a server at the popular restaurant Ox. The stabbing happened back on July 2nd. Smith's family tells us he was hanging out with friends at a bar on Southeast 12th and Madison after work that night. That's when they say the suspect came up to the group and started making homophobic slurs. They say one of Smith's friends is a member of the LGBTQ community, so Smith stepped in to defend them.
I know he was probably trying to just de-escalate and get this person to move on, and that's when he was killed.
Portland police say they're investigating the stabbing as a hate crime. There's also a GoFundMe set up to help the family pay for funeral expenses. You can find a link in the online version of this story at KGW.com. We have an update for you on a couple of local wildfires. Evacuation orders remain in place for several campgrounds around the Boulder fire, which broke out on Saturday near the Boulder Lake Trailhead in Wasco County, southeast of Mount Hood. An update from fire officials this morning shows the fire has grown to 500 acres. People camping at the remote sites in that area had to get out quick.
Somebody happened to pass by our camp and said, "There's a fire. You guys might want to leave." Then we all started getting alerts on our phone. No, we gotta go.
Some like we were coming down to the hills. There's like this big patch of smoke. I in that moment I'm like, well, how did that start?
The Boulder fire remains 0% contained. We do have much better news on the Tunnel 5 fire in Skamania County. Firefighters have made a lot of progress with this one, and it's now 80% contained. It burned more than 500 acres over the past week, and a nearly 10-mile stretch of SR 14 in that part of Skamania County remains closed. So the fire danger definitely continues in our area. Rod, where are some of the red flag warnings right now?
And let me do the setup, and I'll get you to the exact location. So Overnight, early this morning, we had thunderstorms, the gorge around Mount Hood. They raced through Pendleton. Now all of the thunderstorm activity has moved up out of our local area into Washington. You can see Lewiston and Spokane. It's in the wake of these storms that west winds have been blowing. So here's the updated map for red flag warnings. This includes on the Oregon side of the gorge, the Dalles, back into Pendleton. Now parts of the area have been dropped. Hood River no longer technically in the red flag warning area, but much of this region, the East Gorge into the basin, still seeing gusty west winds, and we'll continue to see those winds 30 to 40 miles per hour, which heightens fire danger of any potential fire starts from the lightning that we had earlier today. Right now, for example, the Dalles living up to the forecast, northwest winds gusting to 36 miles per hour. So use caution. Fire starts could quickly get out of hand there this afternoon. Meanwhile, we are seeing some clearing. Here's Newport, the cloudiness thinning somewhat down Uquinta Bay. They had some morning light precipitation, by the way, 59 right now. Clouds are solid in downtown Portland. That's why the temperature hasn't budged much. We're at 62. We will need some sun breaks to get up to 70 or better this afternoon. If we get some sun breaks, I don't think they're going to be overly widespread. So cool weather continuing for your Monday. The 7-day, Drew, does include a hot upcoming weekend. We'll have that for you coming up.
All right, we appreciate that, Rob. We do have a traffic alert to pass along this afternoon as well. Expect more bridge lifts, more than usual anyway, for the Hawthorne Bridge, both today and tomorrow between 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. Multnomah County officials say it's because crews are doing annual inspections on the bridge over the next couple of days. One of our top national headlines today involves President Joe Biden, who kicked off his first full day in his trip to Europe with a visit to London. He met with Britain's Prime Minister and King Charles ahead of a key NATO meeting. NBC's Peter Alexander reports from London.
Good day to you. President Biden beginning his 4-day whirlwind trip through Europe, his first stop at 10 Downing Street, meeting face-to-face with the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. In fact, the 6th time the two men have been together in just the last 9 months. And the president headed over to Windsor Castle for his first visit with King Charles. The president missing the coronation back in May. This in part of makeup, an opportunity to see him after it was the First Lady who came when the king was crowned. Then really at the heart of this trip is President Biden going to the NATO summit in Lithuania, which is really just a few hundred miles away from the fighting in Ukraine. President Biden also dousing any hopes by President Zelensky that Ukraine could be added to the NATO alliance, insisting that Ukraine is not ready for that just yet. But it is notable that the president will try to keep the NATO alliance unified at this key time. And he does face some new criticism from some of the U.S.'s allies after the president's decision to send what they call cluster bombs to Ukraine. Those bombs really spread out explosives in the war zone. They are prohibited by about 100 countries, the fear that they could be a threat to civilians. The president says it's a temporary move, one that he is doing because Ukraine is running low on ammunition. And finally, his last stop on this trip, going to Finland to welcome NATO's newest member to the alliance. That's the latest from here in London. Now back to you.